He's the world's most famous Buddhist figure, a global beacon of peace and serenity beloved by people of many faiths. The 14th Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhists, but he's also a huge thorn in the side of China. Now the Dalai Lama is 88 years old, and as he gets older, a long-simmering crisis over his replacement may be nearing a boiling point.
As a Tibetan Buddhist, His Holiness is everything.
Tenzin Lodeu is a University of Virginia student, the son of Tibetan refugees.
To become a mini version, a mini Dalai Lama, for myself is the most highest yet challenging ideal that I've placed upon myself.
China's communist government doesn't see it that way. Ever since China annexed Tibet in the 1950s, it's viewed the Dalai Lama with suspicion. You might even say fear, as China worked to suppress calls for Tibetan independence. The Dalai Lama fled China in 1959 to India, where he founded the Tibetan government in exile. In the late 1980s and again in 2008, violent protests against Chinese rule broke out in Tibet. Beijing blames the Dalai Lama for the unrest and insists it has the right to pick his successor.
I've heard people compare His Holiness to sort of the Pope, but I think a more accurate analogy would be Jesus Christ. You can't imagine the U.S. interfering in the Pope's elections or, in the birth of, Jesus Christ or something like that. That's just preposterous.
Tibetan Buddhists believe when a Dalai Lama dies, he's reincarnated, and that they must search the world to find the new Dalai Lama. For about 500 years, they've used a sacred process that involves seeing visions in a holy lake in Tibet and testing children to see if they recognize the deceased Dalai Lama's old belongings. But Beijing insists the next Dalai Lama must come from inside China, chosen by picking a name out of a golden urn.
They're an atheist state, communist state. They don't believe in religion, but they're convinced that they have to have a Dalai Lama of their own who will persuade Tibetans on their behalf that they are part of China.
It all sets the stage for the possibility of two Dalai Lamas, one picked by China and one by Tibetan Buddhists.
How will Tibetans around the world respond if China picks its own Dalai Lama?
It'll be unpredictable. There might be unrest.
China's embassy in the U.S. told us the Dalai Lama is a political exile under the cloak of religion, accusing him of engaging in anti-China separatist activities. Meanwhile, the Dalai Lama has kept coy about how he'll be replaced, saying he expects to live well past 100 and raising the possibility he could be reincarnated as a woman. And decades ago, he stepped back from his political role as the leader of Tibetans in exile, hoping to lower the temperature with China.
Since 2001, I completely retired. The elected political leadership, you see, carry all these responsibility. So I think eventually we can teach Chinese how to practice our democracy.
He's also pursued what he calls a middle way, making clear that while Tibetans should be free to live and worship as they please, he's not seeking independence, an approach that seems to be paying off.
China is changing. Now, last few years, I have some contact.
That's raising hope that maybe there could be room for negotiation, even a pre-death agreement between one of the world's most powerful governments and revered religious figures.
The Dalai Lama has said that when he turns 90 years old, he will issue a letter to monks announcing whether he'll be reincarnated as a human, and if so, what the process will be. Now, that birthday is set to come next year, which may be one reason that China is signaling it is increasingly nervous about what happens next.